Hello, everybody. Glad you could join us for episode number 40 of the Launch and Beyond podcast, a podcast designed to support you in not only achieving great success in your business, but also in other areas of life as well. Many would agree that to begin the journey of entrepreneurship and business is the process of stepping into the great unknown, a path once begun that's paved with twists and turns and great uncertainty. Who knows what's around the next corner, the next day, the next week, or the next month? And even when they begin such a journey, many then seek to control every variable and outcome to the point where they can't control everything. They're either stuck where they are or they experience massive stress and anxiety. The reality is life is uncertain. We never can anticipate and know with absolute certainty how everything will play out. And with that comes both stress and the richness of life. While some people are comforted in staying in the known, closing in their world to stay safe, and succumb to the fear and don't take any action, other people lean into such feelings, embrace uncertainty, expand their comfort zone, and embark on a world, experiences and opportunities that they would not otherwise have had. They take that first scary step into the unknown. And once they do that, they take the next step, and then the next step. In this week's episode titled Embracing Uncertainty, we discuss how you can do this with discipline to help you overcome your fears, not only in business, but also in other areas of life as well. We hope you enjoy. Hello, everybody. Looking forward to another great podcast with you today. We are in freedom here in Melbourne, and what a euphoric place that is for us here. This will probably be our last Zoom call meetup, and we go back live in the studio as of next week. So I'm really looking forward to catching up with Adam in person again and recommencing our podcast recordings in the live one. So let's do a quick check-in, Adam, before we start our podcast episode. How have you been this week?
Well, I haven't told you yet, but there might be a special guest that we might have on, and might need to do another Zoom call soon enough.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll keep that.
As you said it, I was like,
keep that up. Keep that under tabs. Yeah.
I don't want to keep Jim as a liar, so I was like, I'm not going to commit him to that. But yeah. This week's been pretty good. As you mentioned, we're in semi-freedom. We're still restricted to 25K, so I can't come visit Jim at the beach yet. But at most time, we've got more freedoms. Bars are open, restaurants again, hair and nails, because I got to make sure my nails look beautiful for our podcast. But all these small businesses are open, and you can see it. There's so much traffic out there. There's so many people posting stories about this. I've just seen so many people in restaurants and eating again, and that's what I was fighting for and pushing for as much as possible, was open up small business. And France has gone into a lockdown now, curfew, very similar to what we had, and there's this specific region. My dad was telling me this morning, because he watches the French news, and he was saying this specific region shut down all big business and left all the small business open.
Wow.
And that was a way to go, hey, you big corporate guys, you've got heaps of money. You can last this 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it's going to be. But the small guys are who we care about, because they're the ones who employ more people than you guys. And so they left all the small businesses open, obviously under strict restrictions. But it's interesting to see how, they might have seen what we did here in Melbourne, and they flipped it on the other side and go, we can't have our businesses shut down for 4 months as well to try and kill off this virus.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting to see. Apparently now Melbourne's one of the world leaders of, house arrest. Yeah. So I was just reflecting on what you were just saying then. So if anybody's watching on YouTube, I had this stunned mullet look on my face. It was really because, what you're saying is opening up the files in my brain. So that's what was going on. I was like, as the audio dropped, or he was just...
No. I'm just in a thinking mode. I have this tendency when I think I go into this really deep introspective state, and I must get this look of worry on my face, because people go, is everything okay, dude? Or and I go, yeah, everything's fine. I'm just, the cogs in my brain are working so hard that they can't calibrate that I need to still smile or look like I'm engaging or interested in what's going on. I just go so far into my head that it just looks like that.
It's funny, like sometimes when we're actually recording this and in studio, you see it a bit more, because like I'm talking and I'm just like looking to see if Jim's like acknowledging or anything, and looks like he's 10,000 miles away. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
he comes back and he summarizes everything perfectly. I'm like, were you even in the room when I was talking? And then he
yeah,
comes back with this gold, and I'm like, all right,
yeah.
yeah,
It's a it's a little bit like Rain Man, right?
yeah,
But it's funny because with our other group coaching ventures and stuff, we've got we've had a lot of group calls and Zoom calls, and we check in with our whole group. There's a whole bunch of people on these calls, and every now and again, I'm sitting next to Batin, we're conducting this call, and I'm looking up and to the right, and Batin has to say to people, hey, listen, look, there's nothing written there, just so that you know. Jim just goes into that place where I almost see the answer. It's really funny because when we talk about what you're talking about now, I almost get a pop-up screen that has all that information come to life, and I can actually see it in terms of characters and how it plays out, and I just follow the storyline, and then I find myself. It's really interesting how we all process information in different ways. I do it visually, and I access that portal really quickly and easily, and that's where I extract down there. So if I ever go into that place, Adam, that's why I'm just looking up for inspiration, right? So that's really what that's about.
it makes total sense to me
Yeah.
because when I was in high school and I really enjoyed maths, I was one of those kids. Um, I would think of algebra. We were doing algebra equations, and I would look up as almost like I was reading the board and following formulas to come back down to where the answer was. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I get that because I'm very visual as well. So
Yeah.
even though there was no board there because we we're in an exam, I would still look up or go, yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that. And that's it.
Yeah.
We get
Yeah.
through it. It was, I can totally get that.
Well, it's interesting because Albert Einstein came up with a theory of relativity that way.
Yeah.
He had a dream where he visualized, he had in his dream, he could see some person riding this wave, this beam of light, and he extrapolated that into the theory of relativity. And, you know, the equals MC squared and all those kind of things. So it doesn't matter how you get your inspiration. It's just, it's basically accessing those parts of that. And Newton, pretty much the same sort of thing. When, you know, historically, you know, an apple fell from a tree, hit him on the head, and that's how he came up with the theory of gravity as well. So these concepts come from different paths and different portals.
One thing that I just picked up from you saying was visualizing, right?
Yeah.
And funny thing was last podcast, we talked a lot about visualizing and, you know, being certain about your goals and clarity. But then Andy Frizella's podcast, Real AF, this past week, they launched one which was talking about all of visualization. So I'm like, I think a lot of people are losing sight with all this media hype that we have and coronavirus. And if you do look at any TV or any social media, it's all about either politics or COVID. And I think a lot of people are looking for something and searching, and they need that visualization because we are in a period of uncertainty. We don't know who's going to be president. We don't know if the economy is going to go well. We don't know. We've got an election here in Brisbane this weekend, so we don't know who their premier is going to be. We don't know if COVID's coming to an end with a vaccine. We've got so many uncertain terms and times. Yet a lot of the things that I'm hearing and seeing, I don't know if it's because I'm open because that's what we've been talking about, but it's about visualization and it's about
Yeah.
knowing your goal. And even though it's uncertain right now, trust that process and come through and know your vision and know where your end result is. And yeah, times are uncertain, but if you have your end goal sitting at that point, you can go towards it.
Yeah. 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 Look, spot on. And there's a difference. You talk about in this day and age where visual media are so important in terms of the image that goes out. And when we had our podcast with the guys at In-House Create, when talking about the importance of video content, there's a difference between a visual medium that shows you information and visualization, because when you're watching stuff, you're in a passive state, whereas in visualization, you're creating the pictures, you're creating the narrative by virtue of pictures in there. So it's a lot more active process. And so that's a lot of why visualization is so important, because you're imprinting into your mind the picture of what that scenario looks like, and it's setting an intention. So it's really, really helpful. And one final thing, when you talk about embracing the uncertainty. And you're right, we've got a lot of changes, and some of the best information and some of the best guidance that I've heard around that, specifically around, you talked about the US presidential elections and all that's going on, is particularly in the business space. A commentator that I basically I follow quite a bit said, we are preparing for both situations. We're preparing for both circumstances and possibilities, because if you only prepare for one and the result is totally opposite to what you expect, you're in trouble. And so if you have, whether it's in politics, whether it's in Brisbane, whether it's everything, you have to have contingencies based on any scenarios, and having what we've spoken about before, adaptability and ability to adapt to the situation rather than be so all in and rigid in one way. It's actually going to be a better model moving forward. So you're right, we live in uncertain times, have for a while, and reality is life is like that. And the most powerful great reference is nature and the biological systems that are geared to deal with uncertainty. And the trees that are flexible, the ones that when they subjected to massive winds bend and adapt and don't get toppled over. But the ones that are rigid are the ones that with a huge force, they snap and break over, I should say.
Yep.
So
that's the main thing. Like, the more rigid you are, you look at a suspension bridge. The reason it's a suspension bridge is because it has that play and that movement, and they're normally built in places that have high earthquake frequency. Can't talk this morning. Earthquake frequencies. So they have the suspension bridges so that when the ground does shake, there's that play and that movement. So that way it's not so rigid and tight. And if everything's rigid and tight, it shatters.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Yeah, it's good to be, flexible and be able to adapt and move and embrace uncertain times, because it's never going to be a smooth road.
Yeah.
And if you think that, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
So a big fat lie.
Yeah. So the importance of this topic is so important at this time. And if we were going to focus on why this is an important topic, there's probably a handful of reasons why embracing uncertainty is really important. And number one is it prevents people from following their dream. So if people aren't prepared to open up the black door and step through that black door and all the uncertainty that comes with it, they're living a life of continuity and same. So it stops people from actually taking that critical step in moving forward. The other thing that not embracing uncertainty does, it prevents people from really sharing how they feel. And most people think in terms of uncertainty in terms of a business sense, but we want to put it in the focus and say this will cost you on a personal level as well. We're not, when someone's scared to communicate their vulnerability, how they feel about someone, whether it's frustrated, angry, whether they care about them, they never initiate that step. And life, relationships, families, kids, it's all uncertainty. You never know how it's going to look, but it's embracing that and being prepared to step into that is the joy and richness of life, right? So without that, you don't get the diversity of experiences, because you only ever keep doing the same things that you've always done. And if you keep doing the same things you've always done, you keep getting the things you've always gotten. So it's a really impressive thing. So if you need to change, something needs to change in you, or something new has to come into your world, something like that. And finally, prevents people from expanding and growing in themselves. So you don't keep expanding as a person. You could be in a role for 20 years, but you're still doing the same thing you did year one. And if you're in business, if you're in any kind of avenue, you want the next iteration and version of yourself to be a better, richer experience and version, because you've been prepared to try new things, expand and grow, and expand your comfort zone.
Yeah, you talk about a lot of the time, control your controllables.
Yeah.
And that helps stabilize you in uncertain times. But at the same time, some people might take it and go, control my controllables and keep me in my comfort zone because I can control this. And they go into their own personal life, but they shut themselves off to the external world because they're really controlling a bit too much, if that makes sense. And they're sitting at home and go, well, I know what I can eat here because I cook the food. I know how to work out here because I've got my bike and it reacts this way. and I know how to deal with my immediate family because we live together all the time, and I know how to work at my workplace, and that's about it. And you don't actually keep growing, and controlling your controllables means you have some core areas of your life that you can control, but that doesn't necessarily have to stop you from going out and dealing with uncertainty. But controlling your controllables talks about building yourself up to be big enough and strong enough to deal with these uncertain times when you met with them, so that you can actually share that with your family, friends, colleagues, and go, hey, I'm having a bit of a tough time. This has come down this week. Do you have any advice for me?
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with asking people, because other people might have dealt with this and you've never known, because
Yep.
not everyone's out there. But yeah, I'm trying to decipher between controlling your controllables and not coming back into your shell too
Yeah.
much.
Okay. I'll give you an example because there's probably several, but I want to diversify and give different examples to the ones that are our regular ones. So imagine you're a rock climber,
Yep.
right? And you love rock climbing. Now, in and of itself, rock climbing can be risky and dangerous, right? Particularly if you're doing it without ropes, right? But some things that are going to be important in that scenario, controlling the controllables, well, one of them will be my equipment. Okay. So you may be rigid and not rigid, you may be fastidious in checking the safety of your equipment, right? Or let's actually probably even a better one, same thing, parachuting, same
Yep.
thing. You've got to be making sure that all your equipment is in perfect state. So you might check them prior to that, making sure that everything's all optimized and done. Another controllable may be that you monitor the weather. And if it's blowing a gale, whether you're rock climbing or parachuting, you don't go out and do that. You don't, because that's a risk tolerance that you're not prepared to follow through. Another one may be just monitor basically the sequence, or monitor the time of the day, whether it's hot. All those kind of things are variables, right? But at the end, once you go, okay, they're the things that I can control. I can't control every variable. Then there's that point where you have to take the risk.
Yep.
There's that jump, and this is what that's about. And this is the whole essence of this podcast, and the intention behind it is the people who are analytical to the point of mitigating risk get to the point sometimes where they're not prepared to tolerate any risk. And that's not how it works. You can control all the elements of there, but there's still going to be a chasm. There's still going to be a gap between one rock face and the other. And you have to embrace and lean into that, jump, do whatever it is required, without always the guarantee that it's always going to go the way you want. But you've prepared for contingency in case it doesn't. That's
Yep.
really what that's about.
Yep. Totally understand.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be rock climbing. It can be situations that are ambiguous, right? It can be uncertain, things that are new, novel, different. And any time that happens, you see that, in people who go to a restaurant, and I've been guilty of it. I love one of a dish, and every time I go back to this restaurant, I keep ordering the same dish, and I love that. And embracing the uncertainty would be, look, try something else.
No.
That's like, but I like that. Okay, I know you like that, but you might like this next thing more. What if you gave it a go? So it's really interesting that, we always say how you do one thing is how you do all things. And you find that people who embrace uncertainty in one area of their life and make it a discipline will start experiencing all the other things. Someone who's rigid in a menu, you got Buckley's chance of changing their opinion about anything. So it's a way of life.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm sort of doing some new product development, and it's in a field that I've never done before. Still in the hospitality area, but it's the other side. And I've never done this. So I've been sitting YouTube, working it out, talking to experts as much as I can in the COVID times. And I've started doing small batches of stuff, and it started working really well. So I've gone to the person I'm doing it with, which is my cousin. I'm like, we need to scale up right now. We need to do this. We need to buy this. We need this. And they're more of a reserved thinker or an analytical type person, which is fine because they're in the financial services.
Yeah.
But they're looking at everything. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not looking at the big scale. And I'm that visionary we've talked about. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're right here and we can make an amount of money from doing this. And he's like, yeah, but we're not at that point yet. So it
Mm.
makes no logical sense to invest in this and invest in that. I'm like, I don't care if it's logical. We've got to embrace this because we got that good momentum now. In 6 months, we might not have this momentum anymore. Let's go right now because there's no time like now to start a new project.
Mm.
Because
Yeah, and that's actually, you highlight the thing in there, and this is what most business and entrepreneurs find challenging, and particularly in talking to accountants who are brilliant at analyzing the data once you give it to them,
yeah,
right? But the analogy that I have, particularly in traditional accounting, and I'm fortunate my accountant's quite proactive, and that's why I'm with him, and have been with him for a long time. But traditionally, if you visualize a car and you're driving, you're looking out the front windscreen as your vision. Accountants traditionally are looking through the rearview mirror, looking at where you've been.
yeah,
And what is really hard to convey, particularly as I've moved recently into financial services as well and doing some big things there. What I'm coming up against is the visionary who's looking to disrupt an industry against people who are traditionally rear view mirror keepers. And so they've even built that into the financial system, right? So if there are no provisions, there are very few provisions within traditional accounting that make allowances for you to grow beyond 100%, beyond 100% per year. So if you've earned X this year and suddenly you earn 2.5 times that, traditional accounting, if you're going to go and lend money or borrow money, they're going to say we can only give you 20% on top of what you earned last year.
yeah.
Right. So that's really, that's where the worlds basically collide, because that's what you're doing is you're saying, hey, here's the vision side of it. But the due diligence part of the way a lot of traditional accountants have been trained is to go, no, we'll only make allowances for 20%.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was sitting here with him yesterday, and we were testing the product. Even though I'd been trying this for 3 or 4 months, this was the first real proper test. And he sat down and he's like, "All right, now I can see some potential. Maybe now we can, buy a bigger version of this like instrument that we're going to use."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well, we could have done this 2 months ago and we could have already been actually producing stuff and selling it through lockdowns, because that was when a lot of new businesses started up,
Yeah.
had great momentum because a lot of people were just sitting at home and didn't have much else to do but search on the internet,
Yeah.
you know? So I'm like, we almost missed that perfect window because you were too reluctant. You were too scared of the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I tend to lean into, and yes, I get burnt, but that's the whole point. I remember one of the key that I was at uni for a year and a half, but the key lesson I learned was the higher the risk, the higher the reward.
Hmm.
And it's obviously a calculated risk, but I always lean into that now, and I lean into that uncertainty. And I'm like, you know what? It's better me trying now and living, going, I tried, rather than me at the end of my life going, hey, actually, I would really wish I should have done that, or I could have done this, because my life could have been completely different,
Hmm.
and that's me running away from the uncertainty gives me regrets.
Yeah.
Me leaning into the uncertainty goes, hey, I know I tried it. It didn't work. All right, let's go to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. And Adam, you highlight a really good point there, because whenever people are confronted with uncertainty, there's two types of default settings, right? When we've touched on them briefly. So it's a case of just highlighting it and just to summarize it. And that is just to say, look, either some people are going to be intolerant of it and totally shut down, or number two, they're going to embrace it. Right? When it's the old saying, they say that when it snows, either people bitch about it or they start skiing.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the same analogy in that regard, but in terms of uncertainty. So I guess because you and I do have a higher risk tolerance, I don't want to make it come across that people who have that built into them are wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all.
I mean,
It's um, it's more just a case of, and at the other flip, people who are uncertain, you got to be strategic as well. People who embrace it and have got a higher risk tolerance, they've got to be smart about what they do too. You don't just jump out of the plane without a parachute and then try and work it out on the way down, which is what they say in Silicon Valley is like, we jump and then we try and work out how to work the parachute. Well, that's all well and good, but there's going to be a lot of people who hit the ground before they work that out, right? So it's, how do you do both? How do you build the skill sets of both into one of it so that you're moving forward, but not retracing and giving up all your great gains every time, right? So let's talk about the two types of people specifically that we talked about: the people who are intolerant of uncertainty and the people who embrace uncertainty. So let's start off first with the people who are intolerant of uncertainty. Adam, like, what they're looking for really is certainty, control, and safety. You know, and that's a protection. How do I preserve what I've done? How do I consolidate on what I've done and move a little bit forward? And like we said, being diligent, being strategic, being smart is prudent, and it's helpful, and it's really important. But when it goes beyond a reasonable level of control, you know, what it does for people is it makes them worry. You know, they overplan. And so whenever you're seeing someone who's trying to overplan, it's just that they're trying to control the uncontrollables. And that creates massive stress. You'll see it play out because they're double checking everything. They're doing all that. They'll quite often even avoid doing things. Like, no, I'll leave it. I won't do it. I won't lean into it. I'll just avoid it. So avoidance behavior is classically plays out. Procrastination, we've discussed that in the past, how that plays out. So that's because people don't want to take any step, that they'll avoid taking any in that regard. They're going to regularly keep looking for reassurance. They're going to go, look, tell me, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? They never actually trust themselves. And you'll find sometimes that they're going to be so strict and rigid in routines to try to control that they get to the point where they almost stifle all the joy out of it as well. So that's at the extreme of someone trying to control all the uncontrollables to avoid uncertainty. All right. Anything you want to add there specifically?
No, a little bit, yeah. We've touched on this before, and you know, it's fine to sometimes be intolerant of uncertainty. There's different stages of everyone's life, and sometimes, you know, you've just got married, you've just had your first kid, you've got a big mortgage. Sometimes it's fine to be safe and controlled and embrace that certainty, because that's what you need at that time. But that doesn't mean that that's how you should live your whole life. Maybe financially you want to be really certain, but you know, you want to go on adventures, you want to hike, you want to drag cars down the road. I don't know, like you can do anything. And if you go in a drag car, there's a level of uncertainty. If you go on a hike, there's a level of uncertainty.
Yeah.
There's all these risks that come into life, and you can't, I mean, you can, but I don't think you should live your life based on risk solely.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
if you don't embrace that uncertainty, or you're intolerant on uncertainty, you might not walk up to the edge of the cliff and see that beautiful view, that panoramic view that you see on postcards, and you go, wow, I've never seen anything like that in the world. And it's like, yeah, well, you didn't get out of that comfort zone. You were intolerant of uncertainty, and you might have taken a wrong turn here or there, but at the end you'll always go to the summit because you just keep walking up.
Yeah.
You know, and then you see that beautiful view.
Yeah. And I remember it would have been a couple of months ago, we had SJ was one of our early guests at the start of lockdown. And SJ is a Forex trader and talked about, even within the uncertainty of Forex trading, there are systems built in that mitigate that. So she was talking about, you know, you're not betting the farm every time. You know, it's 1% of your portfolio you're risking at most at any one time. So if things don't go the way you want and they go south, you haven't lost everything. So this is what we're talking about specifically, is the people who don't want to risk anything, and that's the challenge in there. So we talked about people who are unprepared to embrace uncertainty. The people who do embrace uncertainty, what they're looking for is usually growth. They're looking for possibilities and options that are available to them. It could be in their business, any kind of that. So that's really the motivation. They want change. They want something different, and being prepared to do that. And as a result of that, they're going to be opening up to experiences with other people, personally, prospects that show up, and it's because they're curious, they're spontaneous, they're intuitive, I should say, and they're willing to tolerate some level of discomfort, right? So we all know that, okay, that first jump it builds up a bit of tension in you, and it's having to be okay with that and taking that on, right? That's the really important process, to be able to calibrate that. Now, we talked about the other extreme of that is that then people who are so addicted to uncertainty that they chase it. That's almost like it's a biological need. They're looking for the endorphin rush. They're the thrill seekers who jump out of the plane without the parachute. So they're the people who are looking for the adrenaline high, and with that, that's much higher risk. So to be fair to the people who don't embrace uncertainty, the people who embrace uncertainty recklessly, they're doing it either because they're chasing a feeling, and it's an addictive feeling they're chasing. You were going to say something?
How many times have you jumped from a plane?
I haven't jumped out of a plane.
Oh, it's fun. It's exhilarating. You got to do it.
I haven't jumped out of a plane. I haven't jumped out of a plane. No, I haven't jumped out of a plane.
We'll do it on your next birthday or something.
I stand corrected here. One of my coaching clients, is actually a parachuter. Loves skydiving, and we were talking about this, and he was telling me that he was always doing this and loves it, and he was talking about all those things. And the moment that he became a dad, just went no. And so he changed that, but something within him changed. Right. And it's the same thing that I found when I walked away from martial arts, is a big part of me was missing. So I needed to come back to that feeling of combat, and I felt alive again. So Ryan, I was talking to, he lives in South Australia, he lives in Adelaide, and we were talking about that. And he said, I miss that feeling, because in those, I feel alive. I feel, and it was about that time where I the whole I Fly here is around. There's a place, there's a venue near the airport, the Essendon Fields, which is a skydiving indoor circuit that you can do. And so I bought him a voucher to do it, to go, hey, here's the feeling without the safety. And he's wrapped. So he goes, okay, I'll go if you go. So I'm going.
Oh,
so so I'm actually committed to it. I forgot to mention that to you so I'm going to get the feeling of jumping out, but obviously there's safety and you're not in there. So it's the next best thing.
I'm going to pull you along against you.
Yeah. I'm okay. I've never dodged it. I've never had, it's interesting. Like, there's very few things. Probably the only thing that I do that is dressing up, right? I just go, no, I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
Now that's probably the whole TikTok thing that we keep talking about all the time, and why I dodge that. But I've just never had.
Not me.
I know I did. I never had the desire to jump out of a plane, but it's not that I've gone, I'm terrified of doing it. I've never felt, okay, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, why bother?
Yeah.
But I get it's the rush, right? So I am doing it, but in a safe environment. The moment the border opens and we can let the South Australians in, and then they don't get into lockdown the moment they go back into their state, I'm actually doing it with Ryan.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I'm looking forward to it.
And actually, we were talking about embracing uncertainty. And this doesn't have to be business related. This is anything in your life. And I'm currently listening to an audiobook by David Goggins.
Yep.
And on Audible, he sort of puts his commentary in as well. So it's like a really unique experience. It's them reading the book, the ghostwriter and him, and then him adding like tidbits onto it. Yep. He talks about this accountability mirror. And he goes, I didn't know where I wanted to go, but I knew I didn't want to be here.
Yep.
So that was him being uncertain. and he was looking in the mirror, and he started by shaving, like, you know, he
Yeah.
shaved his face and his hair, and that was him going, I'm clean and I'm driven.
Yeah.
He didn't know where he wanted to go. He just knew he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
So he started working. He had this vision of not being there. So his vision was really uncertain.
Mm.
And then he decided, like, he obviously ultimate vision was he wanted to be in the Air Force. He
Mm.
just didn't know how to get there. He didn't have the right mentors where he was. He had a troubled upbringing. And this happens to a lot of people. They don't want to be where they are, but they're uncertain of that next step.
Yeah.
But there's two types of people. They can just sit back and go, well, I don't want to embrace that. Like, you know, that's me sort of giving up. I mean, that's me going to somewhere that I'm not comfortable. I'm actually happy being a thug because I know that
Yeah.
I'll probably end up in jail, or, you know, I'll probably have a kid with someone, and, you know, that'll be life. I'm living on minimum wage. Or you can sit there and embrace that uncertainty and go, this is not where I want to be. I want to move forward in life. Doesn't mean in business. It just goes, I want to get to that Air Force. I want to go there and I want to move forward. So, again, that's two types of people. There's the people who are happy to, you know, be comfortable because that's what they know, and they're intolerant of that, or you change it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. You basically say is that it's the end of life um, reflection that is most important. You know, and I can't remember her surname. Bonnie is the name. She wrote a book, an Australian one called the regrets that people have
Mm.
basically at the end of their life, and most times she thought in analyzing people at the end of their lives that their biggest regret was going to be the things that they had done, but most times it's the things that they regretted the most were the things that they hadn't done. And the subcategory of this discussion is, with us, is the failure to embrace uncertainty that stopped you doing the things that you wanted to do, those dreams, those hopes that have robbed you of the juice and the joy of life. They're really the things that we're talking about. And Adam, there's 6 points that I wanted to raise or cover about, you know, what a failure to embrace uncertainty costs you. Now, you can refer to these in the show notes, and that's the whole purpose of them. So each and every podcast episode, we've got them there, but these ones will probably, actually, I think there's 8. I was just screening through that. There's 8 points that are probably really good to refer back to if you want to. So what does it failing to embrace uncertainty cost you? Well, number one, the first thing is going to be peace of mind. So, you know, we've both had scenarios and we've seen people who, because of the mindset of not embracing the uncertainty, they live in a constant state of fear and doubt and uncertainty. And you see that harried look, that stressed look that they have. They're just never at peace. And so not being able to embrace that keeps them perpetually locked into that state, right? So,
There was a story I heard, and I'll probably mess it up, but Abe Lincoln, uh,
mm,
he was holding an interview, job interview for someone, and the person walks in the room, and Abe Lincoln asks him just one question, and it was, "How old are you?" And I think the guy said 30 or something, like something pretty young, but like not young enough, like 30, 35 maybe. And the guy goes, "Well, you don't have the job." And the staff around him go, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he goes, "Did you see how his face looked?" He goes, "If he's stressing that much in life, he's not embracing, he's not, you know, part of a presidential team. He's not going to move forward. He's not going to embrace that uncertainty, and he's going to just stress so much, and it's going to come across the whole team, and we're going to be, you know, just really negative. It's not the way I want to go." And that's all he had to do. And you just reminded me when you said that harrowed look on
yeah,
their
yeah,
face, because the stresses do come out, and you do see it with people.
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. So that's one of the first things that shows up. The second thing is that the level of self-trust is it. You never develop your ability to trust yourself in the moment, and you don't have references and experiences that go, hey, I walked through the fire, I embraced that stress and it worked out okay. And so consequently, you're going to be a victim, or you're going to be at the hostage of external circumstances because you don't have autonomy over yourself. So how people, and it's very interesting, is the more you do this, embracing uncertainty becomes like a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So the more you deal with trying new things, the better and easier it gets. It's not something that you're necessarily born with. It's something that's developed, which is really, really important.
This is what I love in kitchens, you know, the self-trust in your ability. When you're an apprentice, you make 10,000 mistakes, you know, and you learn everything because you burn stuff, you cut stuff the wrong size, you burn pasta sometimes. Who's ever burnt pasta? But apprentices do because they're just not sure. But by the time you've gone through that 10,000 hours, you know, that was in outliers, if you get to that 10,000 hour mark, you know how to fix issues you know, in in high pressure situations. When you're in a service and people want something and you burn the steak, you go, all right, let's fix this. Or there's a sauce called a béarnaise sauce. So you use egg yolks and you put oil in there and you got some vinegar and it emulsifies. But sometimes it can become too thick or curdle. So how do you fix that? Simple answer is just put a little bit of hot water.
Mm,
But because you've done your 10,000 hours and you know that when the sauce goes to a certain stage, what do you have to do? Just put a bit of hot water.
mm.
And, you know, there's a lot of things that happen in the stresses of a kitchen that can be just fixed quickly.
Yeah,
But you need to trust yourself. You need to build that up over years and years of experience. And as you said, it's a muscle that keeps growing and
yeah,
growing and growing.
yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. So the third thing that a failure to embrace uncertainty costs you is new experiences. So you're never going to know what's available, what's out there, and particularly in terms of experiences, you might say, "Hey, I don't want to try. I'm not the kind of person who dances, or I'm not the kind of person who
TikTok.
um, TikToks." Okay, I knew as I was saying that you're going to bring that up, so I deliberately just threw it in there and threw myself under the bus, right? But that's
We'll
what
lean
that is.
into it.
It's new experiences, and so it stops you in there, and that leads us really to the next point, which is about new opportunities. So experiences and opportunities are kind of very closely related and linked, whether it's in business and life. So, you know, collaborations, hobbies, new food, all those kind of things are really only going to show themselves up if you're prepared to give them a go. And the next thing you try could become your next best thing. And so, you know, when our kids were young, we encouraged them to try a whole variety of different things in terms of their hobbies. You know, so they tried every sport, every element until they find their thing, and they go, "That's not my thing. That's not my thing. That's not my thing." Or just because I'm not good at it, I won't try that. No, just try it and get a taste of it. And if you like it, then you keep doing more and more of that. But being prepared to try different things was really open. If you just get stuck into not doing anything that's new, you're only ever going to experience a limited snapshot of life.
It's kind of like that white belt mentality. You've
Yeah.
constantly got to just approach life with that white belt mentality, swallow your ego, and just try new things. It gets you out there and it teaches you skills that are transferable. A lot of the time, we talk a lot about jujitsu and martial arts because that's where we met. But a lot of those skills are transferable across into many parts of business. And there's many people like Jocko, for instance, he does it, Joe Rogan. Like there's so many people who stand by the fact that jujitsu sets you up for life. But if you and I didn't have that first desire to walk into there and go, hey, I want to get choked for 2 hours a night, 4 nights a week, you know, we would have never been open to that. We would
Yeah.
have never learned skills that were transferable. How do we deal under pressure? How, if someone's like choking us, how do we still think of strategies?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a cool metaphor, but you live that in jujitsu, then you bring that strategy over to business.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you close yourself off to any of these, you don't get those new opportunities, and then
Yeah.
you know your business or your life starts to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So Adam, continuing on with that. So point number 5 is when you fail to embrace uncertainty, it keeps you fixed in what we call the linear pathway, and as opposed to the quantum field of exponential growth and possibility. So the quantum field and things we've touched on earlier are vibration and energetics that is tapped into infinite possibilities. And when you're only embracing when you're constantly trying to control stuff, you don't even allow things to enter the realm of possibility outside of that rigid process. So this is the scenario when you talked about, sorry, where you're trying to come up with a new product to market and you can see the upside possibility. But when you're focused on a linear pathway, the most someone can see is 10 or 20% ahead. And so that's where they're conflicting. So it's finding the ability to handle a greater level of risk to allow to open up the upside potential. It's really,
Yeah.
really important.
And in a business scenario or an employment scenario, if you're looking at a linear motion or a linear way of living your life, pretty much, you work 30 years at the same place. Every year you get your, whatever it is, 2% pay increase or whatever it becomes. And you constantly can calculate every section of your life. I'll have, 10% pay rise in 10 years. So I can invest in that second house. I can invest in the third house in the next 5 years. And it's all very linear if you even want to invest, because investment market is pretty risky sometimes. But if you live in that quantum field, that exponential growth, you can sit there and year one, you got that 1%, 2%. Next year, you might have 10%. Following year, you might have 50%. Because if you open yourself up to all these beliefs, you remove limits from your vocabulary in a sense. And that opens your mind up to a completely different field. And it opens your mind up to getting opportunities that you don't even think about, because your vibrations are happening in a certain way that you're attracting opportunities. It's coming to you because you haven't closed your mind off to anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it's about. It's about opening up options. You're either in life, you're either closed or open, and really embracing uncertainty is about trying to stay open to all of it. But the risk comes with that. Risk comes with that because, whenever you're shut down, you don't get the experience. But when you're open, it's not a safer place, whether it's emotionally, heart space, business, all of those things. So there has to be contingencies for all that. Point number 6 is, this is an extension of what we just said, is about a failure to grow personally. How many times have we said, how you do one thing is how you do all things? And so that becomes a philosophy or an avenue through which you live life. What's really, really important is that regularly this process of embracing uncertainty upskills your own identity. So it's like you're getting identity upgrades each and every time, where you expand and you refine elements of yourself. You're not running a 2004 software program. You're running the most current version. And so you can look back and monitor how far you've come and how far you've grown by virtue of that. And Adam, you talked about jiu-jitsu. Well, we open up again on the 9th of November. Hopefully, right?
All the numbers are the crazy.
Yeah. So that's the going there. But leading into that, I've realized over the 6 months how much I've missed it for a lot of reasons. But part of it is that ability to, like, I've noticed I've had to work harder to, you talked about improves, or to stay open. I was having a conversation just with someone earlier on during the week, actually, when they were talking about, now that we're opening up here in Melbourne, and I don't believe that people are automatically going to jump back into, okay, everything's going back to normal, right? And I'll tell you why. Because for the longest time, sociologists have said that your habit behavior happens after 21 days. So you do something 21 days and it becomes a habit. Now, there's some research that was done, and Robin Sharma talks a lot about this, that it actually has to be 66 days. And that's the whole basis of 75 hard and all those kind of things, is the continuity, right? So if you have done something according to this research for 66 days, it is hardwired into you now that that's how you're doing things. And you might go away from it, you'll come back to it. But in lockdown, we've had 140 days here. So more than 2.5 times. So what's happened is that now has become a way of life for people. And so to change, to open things up, people haven't got the connections just yet. Some people are like, oh, I'm busting too, and they're going to run out there. But I believe that there's a process of re-education and embracing uncertainty that people have to get used to again to restore their normal. Otherwise, they've closed in their world. And for some people, unfortunately, it may be permanent.
Yeah, and I know people who have actually come to me and said, "I'm not ready to leave the house yet."
Yeah.
And
Yep.
to be fair, someone asked me, "Hey, what's the first thing we're going to do?" And I said to them, "I haven't even thought about it, but that doesn't mean that I'm not willing to do anything. I want to go out." But there's other people who just sit there and say, "Hey, I'm not ready.
Yep.
Can we be locked down for just a little bit longer?" And it's not because of COVID; it's because they've just now not embraced that
Yeah. Yeah.
uncertainty. They're
Yeah.
just like, "Well, I'm comfortable at home.
Yeah.
I've built my office here. I've built my life now. Everything's on the internet. I can stay here."
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly right. And this is what happens with in circuses with the elephants. So when they the way they train an elephant is when it's a really a baby elephant, they tie a rope up to it, to whether it's a chair, whether it's to a pole, and get them conditioned to the idea that, hey, I try and push back, I pull against the rope and the rope will hold me
Mm.
and I can't get away. And as they get bigger and bigger, they become socialized and used to the idea that there's a rope. So even as they become huge animals, and they could very easily snap that rope and be free, they can't entertain that as a concept in their mind because they've become conditioned to be bound, right? And so this is what's happening in society. And it's exactly something. There's fear around returning back to what's quote unquote normal life in society. And so this has been the theme and message that I've been sharing with a lot of the people I work with, is to say to them, hey, you've got to go through a re-education process to establish trust in your clients, customers, to get them to come back and see you, particularly if you've got a service-based business, because you can't assume that, right, the lockdown's gone, all bets are off. No, because everybody's going to embrace uncertainty just to get back to what they were doing before.
Yep.
It's not a given. And the people, in my opinion, who are going to handle that best for the people who they serve are the people who acknowledge that and start a process of helping them find certainty in self to be able to venture out and come and see them.
Yep.
It's really
I
important.
agree
So
with that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Said it really well.
yeah. So
Nothing to add.
look, I've been thinking about this a lot during the week, and you know, for me, it's about resetting. But this is a new game.
Mm.
This is a totally new game, and um, you know, the people who not only adapt, or the people who are conscious of that, are really going to be the people who embrace and welcome back their people the best way possible.
See, for
Uh,
me, I'm living life. I don't wear a mask when I'm outside, and now that businesses are open, I respect small businesses enough that when I walk in, I'll put the mask on because
mm,
I don't want them to close down again.
yeah.
But I know I'm happy and healthy because I test myself, 3 times a week.
Mm,
We've got thermal scanners here now that when we walk in the door every morning, I know that I'm at 36 point whatever, and I know that I'm safe to go around, and
yeah.
I know that I'm good. It's all right. People are uncertain of what's happening because it's a new disease. But at the same time, I don't want businesses to be affected. So I try and live to the rules as much as businesses allow. But at the same time, some businesses, they don't enforce mask wearing.
Mm,
So I know some cafes who they're like, you walk in the door with a mask, then you sit down and eat a meal and drink everything with your mask. No, 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 no. They just go, yeah, you walk in the door, you don't need your mask on because
yeah.
our staff will have the mask on,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
guys don't need
Yeah.
it. That's it. And they're leaning into that uncertainty. All right,
Yeah.
it might not be correct. If you're not comfortable, don't go in.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
their option.
Mm. Uh, Point number 7 is people who failure to embrace. Actually, I was you're laughing at it because I walked up Fitzroy Street the other day here in vibrant inner city Melbourne. It's one of the most vibrant strips in Melbourne, and cafes are full. And that was the scene pretty much in every one of those cafes. So
Super close to the beach as well. So
yeah, yeah,
people don't, they're not super used to wearing heaps of unnecessary clothing items there. They're normally in bathers and bikinis and,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
It's
so.
it's a different subculture down here, that's for sure. So point number 7, when you fail to embrace uncertainty, it keeps you rigid and fixed in a particular path and mindset. So you don't allow or build into your realm of possibility that things could be different. And the longer that you have been fixed in that, the harder it is to turn. Like it's like trying to U-turn the QE2. It's a big ship. It's on a predetermined path, and to change it, turn around, it's really hard. And so, if you embrace micro habits of change and leaning into those kind of scenarios, it gets easier. The more you have, the more references, the more myelination or basically reinforcement that you have by this is what I do, this is who I am. It's a lot harder to change.
Yeah, an example of this is when I first started this factory, I factored in every cost possible, right? And I wrote it down to the cent. Like I was making sure everything was fixed, and I was so analytical about it. And I'd get people to check it for me, and I think I had 3 people check it for me, and they're like, "Yeah, the costings are good. You know, your profit margin's pretty good, and all this." And then I went to one guy who's been in the industry for a little while. He has an accounting background. He actually wrote a lot of the accounting laws in '95 when the in 91 or 95 when super reforms are coming in for Australian workers. And he goes, where's your 10%? Uh, where's your 10% backup? I go, what do you mean? He goes, you should always factor in 10% in your costings for returns, machine upgrades, or maintenance services, some uncertain time. You should always factor that into your costs. So since that time, I'll do my numbers as close as possible, but then I'll add 10% on the end
Mm-hmm.
because I build in for that uncertainty. So that way, when I'm at the end of the day, I'm not looking and going, "Where's this massive hole?" Because I didn't account for servicing my forklift, or I didn't account for servicing my mixing machine because they weren't in black and white costings. So it shows you how a lot of people will not embrace that uncertainty, and then people factor it in and go, "Hey, let's go ahead. We've already we've got a fund for uncertainty in business.
Yeah.
We'll keep moving ahead." And that's what I talk about with that wage buffer as well. You know, I aim for 12 months. This year we wiped a lot of it out, but you know, it is what it is, and that's why we
Yeah.
have the buffers, and that's why
Yeah.
we embrace that uncertainty and we factor it into our business.
Yeah. That's a good example. A good example of that. And Adam, point number 8, and I think this is the one that's really, really an important one in terms of the fulfillment in life, and that is it robs people who are, unprepared to embrace uncertainty, robs them of the heartfelt connection they have with others. So, you've got a classic scenario, uh, you have a feeling for someone, you aren't prepared to risk to tell them how you feel, and you don't even know where that goes. Sure, you could face rejection, but what if it worked out? That could be the turning point in your whole life. That could be the greatest friendship that you ever have. You might start a family if that's what you want to do, but it all begins with that preparedness to risk, to embrace that, embrace the ability, the possibility that you care about someone and they don't care the same about you. It's life. It's the reality of it. And it's a really important component if we're looking for the fulfillment in life as well. It's not just about knocking off the metrics and being successful, because there's so many people that I know who are absolute ninjas in the business world. They are incredibly successful, and yet they've never been able to maintain friendships or primary relationships at all because they weren't prepared to risk their emotional vulnerability. So it's a really, really important component and thing to round out those areas as well. Anything you wanted to add before we go through? Got some suggestions about how you can expand that by coming through with some things that you can do that aren't too threatening that will help you out. But is there anything you want to add before we go through the list?
I think that was really heartfelt what you said, so I'll leave it with you. That was good.
Okay. Thank you. Well, you know why, Adam, why I say that? Because I've been blessed enough to have been very successful on a business level and a financial level. I get that. And there have been some things that involve risk, that things involved uncertainty. There's some big calculated risks that have paid off really, really well. I get that. And I'm very grateful and fortunate to them. But when I reflect back now, the greatest investment and the greatest risk that I ever took was to let Bettina know how I cared about her and start a life on that path. And my life has been so much richer by virtue of the fact that I was prepared to embrace the uncertainty of letting someone know how I felt at the risk that they didn't feel the same. Granted, I waited until I had a pretty good idea that that's how she felt before I committed to it. But that's what I'm talking about.
Calculated risk.
Well, it was, but it's such an important one. I see so many people who are closed off to that, and I see how much anguish and pain and disappointment it causes for them. So, to me, embracing the uncertainty of life means you are open to all the richness of it, the good and the bad, and you can't selectively just go for the upside and then only block out the bad things, because it doesn't work that way. If you shut down your heart, you shut it to everything: joy, enthusiasm, fun, hurt, disappointment, the highs and lows, all of it. And it's so really important that you stay open to all of that from an emotional level.
That's why you hear a lot of people say, I feel really high highs, but then I also feel really low lows. And
Correct. Yeah.
I definitely feel that. And then for a while, it was just too much for me. So I'd shut myself off
Yep.
and I'd close myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm happy to be numb.
Yep.
'Cause, the low lows are not fun.
No, they're not. They're not.
But it's that necessary evil, because if I don't feel those low lows, you'll never feel the high highs. And it's as Jim said, everything's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more you understand about it, and the more it grows. So
Yeah.
you feel low lows every so often now, or I do. I
Yeah.
feel it every so often now because I've changed my mind to think in a more gratuitous way, be gracious for what I have, be more positive, and feel the higher highs. But I train myself that when I'm thinking negative, I catch myself now,
Mm.
and I've got tools that I go, no, that's not how that's going to be, and I flip it, and I think of how I can be really grateful for where I am right now, even though it's a negative time. How am I
Yeah.
grateful? And I
Yeah.
rewrite my thought process.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, it is really important because you're right. The natural default setting for most people is to numb out, right? And they can numb out, they can dissociate, they can almost be out of their body and just going through the motions. That's one way. People can numb out through food, alcohol, sex, a whole lot of ways. They just numb out.
Now you're
And,
talking.
right? Yeah, but that's what happens. That's what happens, right? It's different when people are doing it because you go, "Hey, I get great joy and I'm loving and living fully." That's what it is. But when we're talking it from an addiction point of view, it's really because they're trying to numb a feeling,
Yeah.
right? And for a lot of people, the feeling underneath that is a wound or some fear or uncertainty, something like that. So it's a distinctive pattern of behavior that shows up. So I guess that's probably a podcast in itself, because we can really go down the rabbit hole. There, I've been probably the last 2 weeks I've been reading this awesome book by Kelly Brogan. She's a psychiatrist. She's been on the Joe Rogan podcast, actually, really, really cool. But what I really love about her is that she's a psychiatrist who gave up prescribing medication to her patients and clients because she sought to understand the underlying reasons why they got to those places. And most times it was numbing out, checking out, all those things that we talked about got to the point. And our traditional model was to suppress those so they can get back to normal. But what is normal, right? So that's another podcast in and of itself. But that's the whole purpose of what not embracing uncertainty may cost you.
Well, it's like that. Those sports stars, they get injured in the first few minutes of the game, and everyone's like, "Oh no, you can't be injured." And it's a 5 or a 6 on the scale of injuries. Like you can still walk, still run, but you're in a fair bit of pain. So what do? stick an injection, make it numb,
Yeah.
and strap yourself up a bit more sports tape and get back out there. And then most of the players do. And then if, there's every so often one player goes, no, I'm going to sit this one out, because if I sit it out now, I probably won't aggravate it and be back next week or the week after. And you'll have me more of the season. Whereas the ones who probably strap themselves up, jab themselves with a needle, and then move on, they're probably out for 5, 6, 7 weeks, because they actually do way more damage than if they just sat down and go, hey, I'm going to sort of just sit down. I'll stretch it, put the ice on and start my recovery already while I'm in the game.
Yeah, it's a different approach in that regard. So yeah, like I said to you, mate, that is a podcast in itself, where we talk about the focusing on cause versus just the symptom. That's just a massive one in there as well. So Adam, I think it's really important with all the information we've shared now is that we can share some suggestions on how to embrace uncertainty for our listeners, so that they could take those learnings and then say, okay, well, how do I stretch that? How do I lean into uncertainty? How do I get more comfortable with that process? I think that's going to be really important. And I think it's really important that we mention that people do this in different ways. Some people are going to be the pull the Band-Aid off gradually and slowly type of people. And there's going to be others that just rip the darn thing off straight away, right? So if for some people, it comes down to your own risk tolerance. If you're a kind of person who, if the change is too big, you're going to recoil, you're going to go straight back into your shell again as well. So the graduated process is going to be a better process for you. And just like we said, a muscle that gets stronger the more you use it and the more you do it, the easier, better, more effective that will be as time goes on. Okay.
I'm just reading some of these things and I'm like, I don't want to do one of those.
Yeah, no, well, there you go. We'll see that. Yeah, you will notice we've got a 15 points, and they're not really discussion ones; they're just ideas. But you'll notice there is no record on TikTok that I've put down there, Adam. So, but number one, and jump in. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. Jump in if there's something you're going to hit on any of them specifically. Number one is, you walk or drive home using a different route. How many times do we go from work to home exactly the same way, and we become so used to that idea, and then somehow you get detoured, and because there's a roadblock or whatever, you go through another way. You go, hey man, I had no idea this was here. Or you get lost and you become disoriented, and thank goodness for Google Maps, because otherwise you wouldn't know where you are. So that's an element of bracing uncertainty and just breaking out of the habit forming basically routines of continuity and sameness. Really, really important. Number two, order something new on a menu from a restaurant. Looking forward to going out looking forward to that. Let me tell you, I'm going out tomorrow night with my family for the first time in like months and months and months. So I may do exactly that, is just order something new on a menu, something that I may not have tried.
Chicken parma in a pot.
Mate, if I was on death row, it would be spaghetti, and I had one last minute, it'd be spaghetti marinara. Yeah, that's my go-to. So I always look. I've got to be honest. That's my go-to, because I try not to have that too much. But it'd be you're on death row. Here's your last meal. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, don't worry about any consequences or
that, and a glass of wine. That's my go-to meal. If I was in there. So number three, you might try a different class, a course. It could be a spin class, for yoga, a new language, guitar learning, those kind of things. Something to stretch what you normally do. Number four, go somewhere you've never been. And I think this is really important because, I've met people in their 40s, 50s and 60s who go, hey, we go to Corowa, we go to Albury every year, and we've done so for 36 years. And you go, look, that's great, but there's a whole nother freaking country out there. Why don't you try something new? Oh, but we know what we get there. And I get that. That's really cool and expected. But how do you know? You might like something new, different. So I don't mean to pick on someone who loves going to the same place all the time, but there's a massive, beautiful world out there. Try something new.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, really important.
I'm not the biggest fan of travel, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I do travel for work, and I get amazing experiences every time I go. And I guess maybe because I travel enough for work, I'm not
Yeah.
one of those ones who wants to be a tourist so
Yeah.
often.
See, I love travel. I
Yeah,
love travel, and I love the process of doing things differently.
yeah,
And so I'll deliberately try and get myself lost, right? So that I can work out the new route. So it's almost like this weird game that I like to play where I go, okay, I know where I am, throw me anywhere and I'll find my way back home.
yeah,
I kind of like that, but I like immersing myself in different cultures, in different ways of approaching life and work and so many times I go off and I travel and I see how a different mindset approaches a particular problem. And so I go, wow, if I brought that back to my scenario. So that's what that is for me. It's more, like I love the beach, don't get me wrong. But even for me who loves the beach, I can't sit on it for 16 days straight.
yeah.
Right. So I'll sit on it for a day or so and then I go, great, awesome. Now I want to do something. I want to go into the villages, or I want to go into sightseeing. I want to be around, some of the greatest artists in the world and go, holy shit, what inspired you to do that? That to me is that. And I love the idea that I've got to have my wits about me to get me through. So that's what I love. So that's why I've chucked it in there as well.
Well, generally, I just grab a hotel card
Mm.
with the address and then like
Yeah,
check in pretty much. And for the first 2 or 3 days, I just go walking.
yeah,
If I'm a tourist, I'll walk the whole city. I'll get a grid. I'll walk past all the restaurants that I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll eat there one night, or I'll go past a bar that's really busy. And because I'm on holiday and I'm not driving, I'm having
yeah,
that 11 a.m. beer
yeah,
there, and I'm experiencing the whole thing. And I'm talking more metropolitan areas,
yeah,
but I experience it. It's not something I seek out because I guess I've related it a lot to work now.
yeah,
Every
yeah,
time I get on a plane, I'm like, I'm mostly working when I'm on planes now. So it's like,
yeah.
just got to break that mindset. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, totally. All right. So next thing you could do to basically expand that level of uncertainty is to watch a different film or watch a new movie, whether it's on Netflix, whether it's on wherever your chosen avenue is. That's pretty much a great way to go about that there as well too. I love watching previews, and I watch a preview and I go, oh, that looks exciting. I really want to get to that. But to watch what other people think about it specifically, I try and avoid that because I don't want other people's perceptives of idea to clout mine. So I just like to make up my own mind, which is really important. Um, Another thing you might want to do is have lunch at different places. So if you go out for lunch and or you bring your lunch to work, I don't know, just try something different. If you bring it home, if you bring it from home, try going out. If you go out, go somewhere else. If you go somewhere, like, just mix it up. That will just give you some variation and variety.
You go eat
Um,
in a park, or go
exactly.
just walk around the block and eat on a nature strip somewhere on the
Yep.
sidewalk and just have a different view.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly the process in there as well. So next thing you might want to do is pick up a topic or a book, I should say, or research something on YouTube on a different topic that will expand your awareness of things, how things are, how just watch a documentary, do something different. It's really going to help you out a lot.
Aliens are real. Start on that one.
Is that a show?
No, I'm just saying
Oh,
aliens.
okay.
Look
Okay.
for aliens on YouTube.
Okay, all right. So just expand your awareness. Expand your awareness is really the take-home message of that, which is important. Number 8, I should say, is talk to someone you don't know, a stranger. Like in a social setting. Whenever you go up there, there's some people who just always hold back, and there's other people who are the initiators of conversation. So if you're the person who holds back, what would happen if you were the person who started a conversation? Getting out there, um, initiating conversations, leaning into that. You don't know who you're going to meet. Just be comfortable with that. I think that's going to be really important.
Well, I'm
Um,
not sure how familiar you are with the Live Hard program, but 75 Hard is step one, and then there's phase
yep.
one, phase two, and phase three. And in the phase three, it's a 30-day challenge, pretty much all the 75 hard things. But the things that change it is you need to start a conversation with a different person every day,
Yeah. Yep.
and
That's it.
that's to stretch you.
Mm.
You know how. And not just a hi, how are you? How's your day been? Been busy? All right, cool. Thanks. Have a good day. It's not, no. What excites you? What's your origins? Where are you from? What are your goals? Like, actually talk to someone.
Yeah.
It's not something that a lot of people do. When you're a kid, you just run up to a person and go, "Hey, what's your favorite color?" And they go, "Hey, it's blue. Well, let's be best friends." And then you go and run off, and you spend hours and hours upon hours just playing and having fun. But not many people do that when they're adults. They don't just go, "Hey, hi, my name's Adam. What do you do for fun?" And not many people do that.
No,
So
no.
that stretches your limits, and I think it's a great way.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're in sales or doing it for business, I think everyone should just do it personally. Grow your personal circle. It doesn't have to
Yep.
be a massive one.
Yep.
Add new players every so often.
Yep. Yep. So that's a really good point there as well. So point number 9 is wear something different. And this is really important. You see this when people, there are whole image consultants out there who will help you. If you've got a particular identity, a particular image you want to portray, the stylist basically will go, "Hey, put this on." You go, "Oh no, I don't normally wear that." They go, "Look, just wear it, man. Just try it on." And you go, "Holy smoke, that is amazing." So I know quite a few stylists and quite a few people who take clients out on. They give them a brief and they say, "Look, I want to look professional. I want to do this." So they take them shopping and they introduce a whole lot of options, sometimes ones that they never even considered. They go, "Hey, I only wear this color." Well, let's wear this. This will bring out this, and this in you. But it's being prepared to go, stuff it. I'll try it. I'll try something new. And so many times the suggestion is so much better than you're basically rigid in there. So I know Bettina's hired a stylist several times, and they've come out with ideas that she wouldn't have picked for herself, but who are just matched and nailed it for her. So that's why it's really, really important to do that and go with that. And I've had to do that in elements of some of the brand work that I've been doing, where I go, "Gee, I wouldn't have thought I'd be doing that, or I wouldn't necessarily have picked that for me." But I've trusted the people who have said, "Okay, go there," and they've been 100% right every time.
Yeah, it happens. Like sometimes you're starting out. You want to be semi-casual when you go to work or whatever it is, semi-formal. I don't even know the terms. But half the time you just put on a few things that you have at home and you walk and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I don't know if I look overweight or I just look tired or you don't feel it. And then you go to a stylist or something and they're like, "Oh, you're wearing the wrong size.
Yeah, yeah,
You're wearing a size too big or, or it's too small in the opposite way." And then they fit you properly and you're like, "Wow, actually I look really good. I didn't think I looked this good." And then you're like, "I'm not so fat anymore." It builds your confidence and your
yeah,
self-trust that we were talking about earlier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly, exactly, and that's what they do. That's is this color slimming, or yeah, it will be. Well, why don't you talk to someone who may be able to help you with that? If style and image and brand are really important to you, then talk to some people who are in the know, and they can introduce opportunities for you that may be outside of what you would have considered for yourself. That may be exactly what you're looking for. So that's all really cool. Point number 10, and I'm reluctant to share this one here because I have a feeling this is where it'll go, is to do an activity you've avoided so far. For anybody who's listening to our podcast for a while, Adam's been on the TikTok bandwagon for a long time. I've resisted it like you wouldn't believe. And that's one of the examples that would come up to mind. So I'm going to quickly go to point number 11, just in case Adam just tries to reinforce that any further. No?
We're jumping from a plane on your next birthday.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
From an actual plane, not some, you know, situation or what is it? The iFly.
I fly. Yeah.
Hey, that's going to be great. Don't get me wrong. Don't discount it. But, there's a different level of when you increase the risk.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah.
land on the ground and you're like, woo!
Yeah, it's a different feeling. All right, point number 11. One of the things that you might want to do is start communicating your truth. You might start talking more in risky categories. For example, your views on politics, or letting people know who you are and what you stand for. So there's an element of safety that we want to be liked. So we filter down or vanillarize what we really think. And well, that keeps you safe and in a comfortable place. A lot of the times you're second guessing yourself. You're not really communicating your views. And what I found really interesting is that the clearer you are and who you are and what you stand for, you'll attract those type of people in your world. You'll repel people who go, no, I don't want to. And in which case you go, okay, dude, well, we're not a match, or that's okay. But you draw and open up communication and options with people who go, now I know what you're about. I trust you more. Let me talk to you. So that's what happens. But it comes with risk and embraces uncertainty because you're prepared to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I find this a lot because of my dietaries. Like
Mm,
I've been a vegan for almost 3 years. And I don't harp on about it because I remember when I wasn't a vegan and everyone's like, "Oh, I can't eat that because I'm a vegan." And like, I just used to get so annoyed by it. And me being in the food industry, I'd hear a lot of these dietaries. But now I'm a vegan and I don't harp on about it. And then people like, hey, they start talking and I'm like, oh yeah, I've been vegan for 3 years. And they're like, what? Since when? Like you never talk about it. You don't look like it. And a couple of people have gone, hey, you're the fattest vegan I've ever seen in my life. And I just laugh and embrace it.
mm,
But it doesn't define who I am, but I'm happy to put it out there at any time it comes up. And it frees me. I don't feel like I'm holding on to anything anymore because I'm just
yeah.
like, all right, well, it doesn't define who I am. You didn't know for 3 years that I don't eat meat.
Mm,
That really matter? Are you going to change your opinion now? Because that shows more about you than it does about me.
yeah.
And then in
Yeah.
the end, because I've got that confidence and that, that I can have a big ego. I'm not going to deny it, but I've
Mm,
got that confidence and that ego, and I put it back on them, and they're like, actually, yeah, that's a fault in my judgment, not
mm,
yours.
mm.
And it's liberating
Yeah. No,
doing that
good point.
stuff.
It is. It is actually a really good point. It's liberating
Yeah,
because you're being true to yourself.
yeah.
That's a really good example. Point number 12, things that you might want to do to embrace uncertainty is just start listening to different types of music, for example. You might always be stuck in listening to one genre. What would happen if you started listening to different types of music? Would that change your views on other things? And would you be prepared to just experience different things? It doesn't have to be 180-degree things. It's just starting to do some different things and seeing how that feels and going with that. You might not like it. Okay, go back to what you're doing and then try something else again. But just being prepared to try some different things, I think, will open up the richness of life for you.
It's funny because like a lot of people will listen to hip hop or even modern pop, and then they'll go back and listen to classical or it's on somewhere that there's some classical music, and you can hear the samples that were bitten from all this
Yeah,
classical music, and you're like, that's
yeah,
in that song, and that's like 100 years later, it's 50 years later, 150 years, 200 years, and you're like, what? And people get confused, like, how? It's like, no, because everything's integrated. Like, you can't
yeah,
just shut yourself off to one section of life.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
open yourself up.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a good point there. So point number 13, if you're, this is an approach to life as well too, but if you go to work, if you go on a bus, if you go to a seminar or whatever, sit in a different place than you normally do. So if you're always a back row seater or a front row seater, flip those, try something different, see what that feels like. Just break out of that habit of always doing the same. And particularly, it's really interesting that when you go to a seminar and you go, right, I'm going to sit in the front, I'm going to sit to the left, I'm going to sit to the right, you get a different perspective. It's really fascinating. So just trying different things uh, gives you sometimes a different perspective as well too. So just try something new. Um, Number 14 is delegate tasks to others. So this is a really big important one, particularly if you want to start scaling your business. And the ultimate in embracing uncertainty is to go, okay, well, this is in my control. Now I'm going to pass that on to somebody. And there's a possibility they may not do it exactly the same way. But if you're not prepared to do that, you're bounding yourself to the known. And that's, Richard Branson always said that if someone could do something 90% as well as you can, you pass it on to them because otherwise you will always stay where you are. And so to me, that's the embracing the uncertainty and the scalability as specifically as it relates to building a business.
I use the 80-20 rule
Mm, mm.
that we've spoken about before. If they
Yeah,
do 80% of the job that I can do, yeah, I'll do
yeah,
that.
Yep. And that just means that you're leveraging yourself in that regard.
Yeah.
And so if those 14 points so far have been challenging or confronting, you don't want to do that, perhaps the 15th point, which would be a really easy point, it'd be just brush your teeth with your opposite hand. Like if you're used to brushing your teeth with your right hand, you go through the left hand, and that's going to give you exactly a reference of what it's like when you do something new for the first time. It's going to feel clumsy. It's going to feel awkward. It's not going to feel natural. But the more you do it, it becomes a habit. And then you suddenly go, hey, I'm actually really good at this. You know what? I actually prefer my left, for example. Who knows? But that's what it will feel like when you first start that process. And be prepared to go, okay, I'm going to break out of what I always do is going to be something that's really helpful.
Well, growing up, I used to always play cricket, and I'm a right-hander, so I'd bat right-handed. And then I was listening to commentary, and Adam Gilchrist, one of the
Yeah.
best batsmen ever for Australia. I don't know, but definitely in that period where I was,
We could keep a batsman anyway. Yeah. Like
yeah,
he's
wicket keeper
absolute
batsman,
gun.
yeah,
Yeah.
and awesome in the um, one day format of the game, but also good in the tests. But he was a left-handed batter, even though he was a right-hander. And so
Mm.
that changed my mindset. Go, why did he do that? And then I researched it. This was like years ago. Like Google was, starting up and all that. So you're just like looking at all sound bites, reading wherever you can. And he goes, he used to hook his shots too much with his right hand because his power came from the bottom, and all his balls would sweep over too far to the other side. So he changed his grip, and he had more accuracy that way as he was batting. So then I started batting left-handed, and I found that I had that accuracy as well. Not just because I loved him, it was I felt like I had more control, and I was like, yeah. So now I've started. I'm more of a left-handed batsman.
Mm.
I still revert back to right hand if I haven't played for a while because you got to sort of get back into the swing of things. But I play when I'm playing proper. I always go with a left-hand grip now
Mm.
and play
Yeah.
that way, and it just changed my whole mindset.
Yeah. It's funny to say about cricket, Adam, because I played cricket to a high level,
Yeah.
and I was an opening batsman for a long time. And growing up, because I was in a state squad as a young kid,
Oh wow.
and and this is like under 15s, under 16s, right? And so I was a lot better than my brother
Yeah.
growing up, and we would play games in the back, and he'd never get me out if I was batting right-handed. And so he'd crack the shits and go, I'm not playing, man, because I never get a chance. So I go, all right, I'm going to bat left-handed so that we could so you can get me out. But what happened is I got better and better at left-hand as well.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I developed the skill of batting left-handed, like you did, for a different reason. And so what would happen is I got it up to a certain point that when I was at training, as I was progressing and into senior level as well, if I wasn't timing the ball well, my normal batting one, I'd flip around and bat left for a while.
Yeah.
And people would go, what the hell are you doing, dude? It was just to reset things in my mind. And then I'd face, 4 or 6 deliveries, just get my neurology and go back to it. And it'd just kick in my brain really well. So I just, sharpened up the loose connections in my brain if my timing wasn't right. And that's how I did it.
Well, it's funny, like we talk about translatable skills, and yeah, I did it with cricket. I went from right-hander to left-hander, but then I did that in karate as well. Every time I was sparring, I'd spar orthodox, and then I'd do like a punch,
Southpaw.
kick,
Yeah.
step over, and fight southpaw. And people just tripped out. They're like, how are you dominant on both sides? It's like, because firstly, I put the time in, but I realized that if I'm fighting southpaw, a lot of people don't know how to deal with me, especially at my age and my level. Not many people knew how to deal with the southpaws.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, I'd be orthodox and then flip it over, and then people, their minds would flip out.
Yeah.
And then I watched the Rocky movies later on in life, and you got Mickey telling Rocky in one of them to go, oh, he was a southpaw. It's like, no, you got to fight orthodox for the whole fight,
Yeah.
and then we'll switch back to southpaw just to throw him off. Like, so
that's what we had Mr. T and Clubber Lane coming in. It was a southpaw, so that's right. It was really important to get all that done. So,
and I just want to add one more point in, and this is one I will learn from Wim Hof: is jump in ice water. Don't submerge your head, but do an ice bath.
Yeah.
And if ice bath is not good enough for you, have a cold shower. It's liberating. It's not comfortable. No one wants to do it, but you'll see the benefits straight away. Have a cold shower, or turn the hot water off as you're about to finish your shower. Have 30 seconds to a minute, and you'll see the change in your day.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah,
notice there's
you do. You do.
different chemical reaction, or I don't know what happens, but you feel so much better.
Yeah, I have the cold showers in the morning. Got to say that when you have that victory, first up, it does change the way you go about life and that day, that's for sure, when you start off with cold shower. So ice bath definitely is embracing uncertainty as well as some sub-zero temperatures too, sometimes, Adam, as well. So I want to leave our listeners with some action steps if they so choose to follow through to get the most out of this podcast specifically. And number one would be, when you are faced with uncertainty, is to identify what your default response to it is. Do you go to fear or anxiety, or do you go to joy and feeling alive? And that will be a sub context of that will be whether you embrace or whether you avoid uncertainty. So that's just identify where you're at. Number two is to identify the benefits you have in behaving this way. And why that's important is because a lot of people say, I do this and I don't know why. But if you delve deeper, you'll work out why. You're actually getting some level of benefit. It could be that you're safe. It could be that you've got control. But it's identifying what it is that it gets you. Because the first step of changing anything is awareness and being able to change that around. Number three is to list what it's costing you on a personal, financial, and relationship level, for example, that approach. Either way, whether it's embracing too much uncertainty or not enough. What's it costing you in all those metrics? And fourth, what are the three things that you could do that would help you embrace uncertainty and expand your comfort zone if embracing uncertainty is what you want to focus on? So there's some 4 action steps that we're leaving people with. Adam, anything you want to final comments or finish up with before we complete our podcast today?
Just wanted to say it's great to have everything open again. You feel a different energy around the city today. That's where the certainty came in. For a long time, there was uncertainty. So it's been good to get some certainty back. But just get out and do stuff. Do stuff that you never did before the lockdowns. We don't know if we're going to go back into another lockdown as well. And the Premier hasn't, in his briefing, hasn't said, no, that's it. We're done with lockdowns. They're talking about a third wave possibility. So right now, when everything's open and you can do stuff, get out and do it as much as possible. Go for that hike that you've been putting off for months. Go to that new restaurant that you haven't seen. Go order a different meal off a menu. Do something different and just embrace that uncertainty, because you don't know when or if we'll go back into a lockdown. So I'm happy that we're open because we got those comforts, but definitely go back and try and be uncertain and do stuff that you weren't doing way before then. And be happy, healthy, and strong. That's all.
Yeah, I love that. And me, just to finish up, my life motto is Carpe Diem, which is seize the day. And seizing the day means quite regularly embracing the uncertainty and will that it brings, and being okay with that. So, Adam, this is a big topic for a lot of people. Embracing the uncertainty is a reminder that we've got the show notes of the podcast that you can refer to if there's specific elements of the podcast you want to come back to. I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us once again on our podcast. It's fantastic to have had the opportunity to present the podcast in a Zoom format, but so looking forward to next week getting back in studio with Adam and going back to what we love doing, and that is to record in that studio format, bounce off each other in that regard. We'd love to remind you that there's an opportunity to connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and our extended Launch and Beyond community. And if you'd love to do so, these are the channels to do that with us. We'd love you to post any questions or comments you have about the podcast or anything you'd like to have support with. I know we say it all the time, but if there's things that you come up with and you post it in a general forum, it gives every opportunity to benefit from that information as opposed to the one-on-one. So we're humbled and we love the individual messages that we received. It'd be just great to put it in an open forum, and we'll never add that into a public forum without your consent and just respectful of it, but it'd be great if you could do that. If you're enjoying our podcast and finding out value in it, we'd be very grateful if you go over to iTunes and leave us a review. That'll allow us to expand our audience and help more people. So Adam, from me, it's been a great 10 weeks or so in podcast. I look forward to catching up with you live next week.
Socially distanced. Thanks.
Socially distanced, of course. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.